And welcome to another episode of South Texas Crossfire. This is Attorney Joe Flores reminding you to join us each and every week right here on KTMV with the Lopez family. Special thanks to Don Humberto Lozano Lopez. He passed away in 2011, but he's never forgotten. This show is going to be aired in the holidays and also in the new year, so I couldn't think of anybody better to bring on than your city councilman, or should I say woman or person, Lillian. And you also know her as Lillian Riojas. I just call her Lillian. And we're very fortunate to have her on. Welcome.
Thanks,
How are
Joe.
you?
I'm so glad to be back on your show.
Well, I keep seeing you everywhere. I mean, from kids, with the food bank. There was some children that got really involved in community service. Tell us a little bit about that.
That was last week, actually. So the food bank has a program whereby they go into the local schools and they try whichever school can raise the most canned goods, and they weigh them, they become eligible for a grant from Valero, Citgo, Flint Hills, and HEB. Give that school $800 grant for computers or whatever things that the students and the school needs. And they have different categories. So they have a small school, large school, outside the city of Corpus Christi school. And so it's something that my company Valero has been involved with for years, and it's always such a great reminder and time for me when I go and do that check presentation, because it does reinforce two good things: education, and the other thing is about giving back. And I think it's so cool that at an early age, elementary or whatever, little kids are learning how to give back and help make a difference in somebody else's life. And so by, collecting these food, and they weigh it, and, you add a little competition to it, right?
Absolutely.
But I think they are learning something that's going to be enduring for life about the importance of giving back to the community and to those that maybe are less fortunate than they are.
Well, and that's not just one of many projects actually that you guys are working on, and I think it's great that you're working with the children, because it really impacts them. And my daughter went to Gloria Hicks School from IWA. They went over there, and some kids that were less fortunate are getting presents. Miss Hicks was out there.
Good.
And she's really worked hard, and I think it really impacts them in a very positive way. What other projects is your company? Because I know you are very involved with, and we're going to get into the politics and everything in a minute. But tell us a little bit more about your company's role in how you do some philanthropic sort of activities here in town.
Valero's been here for over 30 years. This is the first and longest owned refinery with the entire Valero system. And one of the things that I know we pride ourselves on, just like safety is such an important value for us, so is being a good community steward and a good community partner and a good community neighbor. And we do that in a lot of ways. We give of our time, we give of our talents, and then obviously we give money. We give contributions to a number of organizations each year. And each of those organizations are looked at, we ask questions, and really the whole goal is we want to make sure that the monies that we're providing you, or the time that we're investing in your organization, or the talents and expertise that maybe our employees have and they're lending to your group, are going directly to the group, or to whether it be children, or whether it be education, or whether it be the environment, whatever it is, that's making sure that it's having the most impact and most influence on the community. And so that's really, really important for us. One of the things that we did that I think it was an amazing thing this year is that we were a major contributor to the Texas State Aquarium.
It's great.
When you think about it, the Texas State Aquarium is right here in our community. The Texas State Aquarium. And now they're undergoing a new transformation by adding a whole new wing to that experience, which I think it's more than just a tourist draw. I think it's an education piece, and it's an environmental piece. It shows people to care about the resources here in the environment, whether it's the water habitat, fish life, land, and that's something Valero stands for. We pride ourselves in being good environmental stewards. And so I was really pleased that we could help give them $500,000 to that new wing. We weren't alone. There were many other companies that stepped up and invested into the Texas State Aquarium. And so that was one of the exciting things that we did this year. We also are really, really involved with the Corpus Christi Police Athletic League. And as you know, that's a league for athletic and recreational activities for kids that are at risk. And so Valero, we do a dove hunt. Imagine that, Valero Refinery and lots of hunters. We do an annual dove hunt, and we raised $141,000 for the 2,500 children that go through that program, whether they're learning baseball, volleyball, boxing, whatever. They are learning lifelong skills just through sports that they can hopefully apply for their life.
So it's just amazing, when you enter public life, you've already been with a company that really helps people. We'd like to kind of spotlight them in 2015 for all the work that they do. I'd like for you to try to spearhead that, bring on people.
We would love that,
We'd
Joe.
love to bring them on because they've done so much for Education is Our Freedom. Because of your company, we've had people go on to college, and you've been part of that. And it's not just that service, but as a city councilwoman, you've got a lot of responsibilities to that kind of works together, right? It's kind of fun.
It does. It's been an interesting combination because of the hat I wear with Valero, being their director of public affairs, and being involved in that community aspect of Valero trying to impact and influence change. And you brought up a very good point with Education is Our Freedom. That's another area where we have been focused so many dollars and efforts on, because we want to make sure that as we have a large retiring workforce, nearly 60% of our workforce is going to be eligible to retire in 2017. We need to make sure that we are supporting and partnering with people like Education is Our Freedom, Del Mar College, the Craft Training Center, so that we can make sure that the people have the education and the skills they need to come get those local jobs right in our refinery. And so that's something you'll hear more and more about with Valero going into next year. We're building a new unit. We're going to need people to build that unit, and at the same time, we're going to need people to go run that unit. There's a lot of positive things going on, not just for the new companies that are coming to town, Joe, but for the companies that have been here for decades, like Valero. We've been here for 3+ decades. We want to be here. We're reinvesting in the community, and education is a really key thing for us to put our money where our mouth is, literally, and invest in those programs, just like you mentioned with Education is Our Freedom and the others. But it is an interesting hat that I can wear with Valero, and I think that the knowledge and the things I get involved with Valero, I think does have some good transference into the city and what happens at the city council and for our community. And so it's two hats I wear, and sometimes I have to tell people, okay, I'm wearing this hat right now and this hat right now and this hat right now. But I think no matter what, there's lots of commonalities in the hats between Valero and the city. Ultimately, we want this place to be a better place to live, work, and play. And I know that that's what we want the Corpus Christi community to be. And same thing with Valero. We want Corpus Christi to be the best place it can for people to live, build a life here, for them to have good paying jobs like at Valero, and then for them to play here and raise their family here and have a wonderful quality of life. Those are the things that are important to Valero, and those are the things that are important to me as a city councilwoman. And I'm so grateful that the voters voted me back in. It's, you can get so many endorsements, Joe, from this group and that group and this group and that group, and I am thankful for those groups' endorsements, the Police Association and others, the Island PAC, and I was really, really thankful. But the best and the biggest endorsement for me is that of the voters. When those thousands of people come out and they choose Lillian Riojas to represent them on the city council as an at-large member, that's the biggest endorsement I can get.
Well, congratulations on that. And I saw you election night. It was the top 3 vote getters, and when you run at large, you take a big chance.
You do.
You've got to run citywide. And my congratulations to Steve Ray. Had Miss Vaughn come on. Brian Rosas, he also came on by 106 votes.
I know. Can you imagine? Both times, in the general election and in the runoff.
He said 106 is his number. Congratulations to he and his family. So let's turn a little bit to politics. And in the couple of minutes before the break, what do you want to tell the people? What's your plan, and what do you see for the future of Corpus Christi moving forward as their representative?
The things that are going to be important to me are some of the things that have always been important to me. Water. I don't think we're finished with the conversation about water supply. There's a conversation going on right now about desalination and what would a plant look like for just industrial customers. I want to continue to focus on water and ensuring that this community has water supply, not just for businesses, but for our residents. So you're going to continue to see me really actively involved in water because I think it's critical for any community, but especially Corpus Christi. The growth that we're experiencing now is really tied to our ability to have water and to have workforce. That's another thing that I want to be more involved in coming up into the new council session is workforce. I have another hat that I wear is I'm on the Workforce Solutions of the Coastal Bend Board. It's a state, it's through the Texas Workforce Commission, and basically that's charged with providing jobs for people, employer services, training programs, and I'm now their new vice chair. And so I want to use that hat and see how I can use some of that knowledge and skills that I have in working with the Workforce Solutions Board and into the city, because I think we need to make sure that we are preparing our local workforce for the jobs that are coming to this community. I know a lot of companies bring in people from the outside, and I understand sometimes the businesses have to do what they have to do, but I think that we need to make sure that we're preparing our local people, our local children,
That's right.
our local graduates for those really good paying jobs. So I think the city does have a role in ensuring we have an educated, skilled, qualified workforce. The other thing I want to focus on is infrastructure. I know that that's the word, that's the buzzword, Joe, infrastructure. I think that the community is still needs to see our streets fixed. I was just driving on my way over here and looking at shoreline realignment. Many people have been seeing that and what's happening and what are we doing. And even though I want the rain, but I met with the contractors on Monday who are redoing the shoreline road and was trying to get an update because a lot of my constituents have called and said, what's going on? How long is it going to be? What's taken so long? So, I listen to the constituents, and one of the things I do is I'm going to go get answers. So I met with the contractors, I met with engineers and said, tell me what's going on. And they were going to have to do some work starting yesterday, but they said it can't rain. So I saw the rain today and thought, the only time I'm wishing not for rain, because most of the time I want it to rain.
Exactly.
But I really am like, we've got to have the weather cooperate with us so that road can be finished, because I think it's so important that we finish that road. And the number one is that we're credible and we're accountable. We told the community that this road was going to be done in a certain time frame, and we need to live up to that. So streets, infrastructure, that's going to continue to be a conversation that I want to be actively engaged on, especially residential streets. I think those are the streets that touch your life, right? You drive on them, you live on them, you play on them. And so we as a council have got to find a program to address residential streets, and in a way that is not, it's got to be beneficial, but we've got to be creative too. We're going to have to be really creative, because I think that there's not probably a will on the council to go back to the voters and go back to the taxpayers and say, give us more. We need to look for more within our own pockets. And I think we started that last budget cycle, putting more money into street programs, especially residential street programs, through our street maintenance programs, through some of the dollars that are coming through the industrial district revenues. All of the industrial companies pay the city a fee. And so that money, we have now allocated a portion of those funds to go straight to streets.
Good.
For maintenance and for residential streets. And so I want to see that continuing, but I think we're going to have to be creative about how we're going to fund a program to address residential streets. So I think water supply, that's going to be a conversation I want to be actively involved in. I think the other thing is about workforce. How are we going to make sure to work with all of those collaborative partners, the school districts, the legislature, now that they're going back in session again, what kind of laws do we need to have around education to make sure that we're getting the finances, the funding we need here locally, so that the bottom line for me is I want our local children to get skilled, qualified, and be educated to take advantage of the jobs that I know are coming. I see them, especially in industry. And then again, addressing streets. What are we going to do about our streets? And how are we going to come up with a clear, understandable, sustainable residential street program? I think another conversation we're going to have is about public safety. is about policemen and firemen. And the firemen conversation is continuing, as most people know, and I'm confident that we'll come to some resolution. But it all has to be fair, equitable, and it has to be financially sustainable. We've got to be able to pay for it over time, without compromising other services.
That's right. That's right. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to focus more on that, because especially streets and things that impact you. I think as a city council representative, Ms. Riojas has touched on some things that impact you. When you say, how does this affect me? Why should I care? Because the moment you pull out from your driveway, you should care. And everything that you do. So we're going to take a brief break. I hope you can stay with us. We're going to talk some more.
Good.
And we'll be right back.
Have you been arrested or are potentially facing criminal charges? You need a trial attorney who is well versed in the courtroom. Joe Flores has handled hundreds of criminal cases and many of them to trial. Joe Flores can provide you with competent representation to protect your constitutional rights in state and federal court. Joe Flores can help if you have been arrested or facing criminal charges. The law offices of Joe Flores, equal justice for all.
Create an everlasting memory. With over 20 years' experience, Nueces Monuments can pay tribute to your loved one with kindness and compassion. Nueces County Monument specializes in benches, monuments, markers, pictures, faces, and much more. Layaway and no-interest payment plans available. Accepted by all cemeteries, and home appointments are available. Call 361-452-2366 today. Nueces Monuments, creating everlasting memories for your loved one.
And we're back after a brief break. Thanks to our sponsor, Nueces Monument, for making it happen, and also to Carlos Lopez. We're here with your city council representative, your voice, Lillian Riojas. Congratulations again on your resounding victory. Let me tell you, just touching on politics, it's not easy to be campaigning out there, right?
It's not easy, but you know what? It's worth it. And you know, it's interesting. This is the first time in Corpus Christi's history that you're going to have 5 women on the council. And you have a majority of a council is women.
I have a daughter, and hoorah for that. You know, I'm so glad to see that more women are taking an active role like you in public service. And thank you for that. You know, I think everybody should be treated equally, but I think that you need a voice also. There's a lot of women out there that are single women that feel, you know, powerless, that they don't have a voice, and you kind of are a role model for that, for the girls that are coming out and coming up.
Well, thanks. I hope so.
Yeah, and so we left off talking about some of the most important infrastructure. We talked about the streets, but let's talk about our firefighters and law enforcement officials. What are you passionate about on those issues right now that touch and concern your constituents?
I think, you know, one of the ones I'll talk about is with the police officers. I think that under the leadership of Chief Simpson, we do have a good police force. I think we do. And I know that we as a council have to address manpower issues. You know, I've had lots of calls from people who say, you know, my neighborhood is experiencing a lot of burglaries or a lot of break-ins or a lot of, you know, people stealing things from here and here. And, you know, I want the police to come and do proactive calls. Can they just come and start doing drive-bys? And I want them to. But it is a balance between the proactive time that a police officer can be doing those proactive drive-throughs in neighborhoods and then the reactive. And right now there is a little bit of an imbalance, Joe. Our police force, because they don't have the manpower they need to allocate, they do spend a little bit more on the reactive stuff. And I'd love to see us work on a plan, a long-term plan. It can't happen overnight, Joe. We can't, you know, I was proud of the fact that this last council, this last budget cycle, we appropriated funds through the Crime Control District for 13 more officers. 13 more officers.
That makes a difference.
That are in this community, and that had not been done in years, where we allocated new officers 13 more officers are on the streets protecting our citizens, protecting our children. And so I think in order for us, we've got to look at a long-range plan, probably a 4 to 5 year plan of how are we going to grow our manpower and how can we build better efficiencies through the police department, even through technology. And I know that Chief Simpson is already doing those kinds of things. He's looking at what he has, how can we make it better, but also, well, how can technology add in on this? But I think there is a point where no matter how efficient he makes it and no matter how much technology we add, we're still going to need some more people on the streets. And we're still going to be needing people on the streets to make sure that the neighborhoods are safe and doing that proactive policing that's doing the drive-bys, not because somebody called and said, I see a suspicious person here and somebody just broke in on XYZ street, but because they've targeted some neighborhoods where they know they've got to start doing some proactive, presence. I mean, it's amazing, right? When the police cars start driving through your neighborhood and people know you're probably not going to be a neighborhood that's targeted.
Well, and we put up a new sign around our area near the Bay Area, and Neighbors on Watch helps.
Good.
A new sign that looks like that. Plus, I tell people if they're scared or they hear something to call 886-2600, the non-emergency line.
Thank you.
And they respond very quickly. I am grateful to CCPD, plus our rural, the Sheriff's Department does a great job too.
They play a role.
Very, very much so. But CCPD here in town does do a great job. And Simpson, I'd like to have him on. Chief Simpson had to make a tough decision on a person allegedly having murdered people and hurt a child that they restrained, and that person, had been roughed up and then later took his own life. But he had to make a tough decision recently with law enforcement, with some of his own men.
Right, he did. He had to, make sure that there was some.
Right now, with the way, I saw a beautiful speech again, Robert Kennedy, when Martin Luther King was killed, and said, you can do two things. You can hate the police, you can hate a certain group of people, white people versus African American. And I remember him saying, but don't forget that a white person killed my own brother. And I could choose to hate, or I could choose to make something positive out of it. And right now, I think in America, we have a distrust to a certain level of law enforcement, but I think we've got a great force here, here in Corpus Christi.
We do, and nothing's ever perfect, Joe.
No,
that.
It's hard. You risk your life every shift that they go out there. They risk their life, not knowing if they come home.
Exactly, and not knowing what they're dealing with or who they're dealing with. And,
exactly.
And the chief did. He had to make a leadership decision about the officers involved in that situation, and it was an unfortunate situation all the way around.
All the way around.
People are not here today because of other people's choices.
Exactly.
Right? And so it was a very unfortunate situation and obviously got escalated. And the chief, I have to support the chief in his leadership decision and what he's done. I think the chief has done a good thing here in this community in that he's accessible and that he goes out and communicates. Whenever I've seen that there have been some issues in neighborhoods, they'll do a town hall meeting and instantly try to address those types of conversations and those issues, and so that you don't see what's happening, unfortunately, in some of the other parts of the United States where there's a lot of hostilities and there's a lot of frustration.
When citizens want to meet, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
but
go ahead.
The citizens, how can they meet? Isn't there coffee with policemen that you can have?
We
and
do.
visit?
The chief does. He does do. I think it's through one of the chambers where he'll do kind of a coffee with the cop or meet the police,
awesome.
Something like that. Coffee with the cop, I think, is what they call it. And so he does that. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's quarterly, and it's through some of the chambers. He's on a local radio program every week. The chief is always at city council. And he sits through the meeting, listens to all the public comment. He's always there. I know he goes to a number of community events. He actually there's a breakfast, State of the Police breakfast in January. So I think the chief, has made himself available and accessible to where people need information, and as well as his assistant chiefs. I mean, he's done some reorganization within the department, and oftentimes, they're out and about. And I'd be glad to have the chief come on your show and
Please,
be a part
yeah.
of that.
Let him come on. Bring him. Come on with
I'll
him.
bring him, and I know that he always seems to me he's willing and open to share information, and
Other guys here, and for the time frame we have the firefighters. They're just as equally important.
they are. We need our
yeah.
firefighters. That's why I say, public safety, and when I say about public safety, it's the men and women who serve our community day in and day out.
What's
Our police
going on with those
officers
firefighters?
and our firefighters? Well, and I can't talk a lot about it
Mm-hmm.
because of some of the contract negotiations, but we're still trying to work through the contract negotiation and resolve that issue with the firefighters. I'm hopeful that we're going to come to some resolution. We don't always agree on everything, right, Joe? That's just life. It happens at home, it happens at work, it happens at council. You don't always agree, but I'm hopeful, and I want to be optimistic that we're going to come to some resolution that's fair, that's equitable, and it's financially sustainable. Because at the end of the day, those are men and women that are serving our communities as firefighters. They have families at home, and I'm sure they need to bring resolution so that they have an understanding of what's going to happen with their financial situation at home. And so as a council member, I'm very cognizant of that, because I want to make sure that families are provided for. But at the same time, I don't want to make sure that we're compromising one group just for another. We need to balance all the services.
There was one captain and another firefighter who really risked their lives recently. One suffered a severe shoulder injury, another one a back, and some other injuries, burns. And I don't think people realize not only firefighting, but also responding to emergency calls, medical. These guys are very versatile, where they can start
right.
IVs under a street. They have to know more than firefighting. They have to know how to save lives as far as emergency medical services.
They provide an extremely valuable service to this
Without
community.
carrying a gun.
Without carrying a gun. But you're exactly right. A majority of what the firefighters are doing now is emergency medical services.
Big time.
And it's a need in our community. You know a lot about healthcare, and there's a great need for that. And so that's why I just think I'm hopeful. I want to come to some resolution that's fair, equitable, and that we can financially sustain it going into the future, so that our entire community benefits and that all the city services are brought higher, because that's what we need. We really do.
What do we need in 2015? You're moving forward. Number one, so people that know, it's also on TV. It's on Time Warner and the other cable affiliates there. They get to see you, the city council.
That's right. Our meetings are televised. Every Tuesday, except the first Tuesday of the month, they're televised.
And somebody that wants to attend?
They can 11:30 a.m. City Hall, and public comment is at 12 o'clock.
And that's Tuesdays.
Tuesdays. Every Tuesday except the first Tuesday of the month. Our first meeting with the new council will be on January 13th.
January 13th,
So,
Tuesday,
11:30.
11:30. I'm going to be there. You guys be there. And that way we see the new city council.
That's right. You'll have some new faces.
Okay, and what's the plan as far as for your constituents? What do you envision for 2015?
Just a continued focus on the things that the voters have elected me to do. I think that the things that I ran on and said I wanted to work on in 2012 are the same things we still need to work on going forward. Water, workforce, residential streets, economic development. I think we have a huge opportunity right now. We've got a lot of infusion of businesses coming in, which is wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. $32 billion with a B, $billion of new investment that's coming in. And so I think we've got to make sure not to mess it up. We can't mess it up, right, Joe? These opportunities don't come along very often, but we can't mess it up. And so economic development and those policies and those strategies and the way that we do business is going to be important so that we can make sure to maximize that and take care of the new businesses, but like I mentioned before, equally take care of the businesses that are already here. Because what I mean about the businesses that are already here is they've got employees. Valero, 800 employees.
For 30 years, right?
We've been in business here locally 30 plus years. 30
plus years. And so, I'm excited about the new business, but remember those businesses like Valero that have already been here, that have done things in the 80s, 90s now to help this community and to help some people that I know that really impact that are going to college now. And I'm encouraging everybody in high school, if you can get some college credit, we're $1 trillion in debt. Get your, you trained at Baylor. A lot of people can't afford or have the resources, but we have resources right here. Community colleges where you can go to Del Mar College, open admission, don't have to worry about SAT scores.
You can go.
Yeah.
That's right. And there's grants to go to college at Del Mar through the
Oh
Del
my
Mar College
gosh.
Foundation.
Yes.
There's grants to go to the Craft Training Center. There's money out there for people to go take advantage of for scholarships. And so that's my hope, is that, whether people look at me and maybe I'm some, can help inspire girls, especially girls,
Absolutely.
to get into industry. I think it's fabulous to see women in industry.
Very underrepresented in that and in computers, and guys and gals and ladies, you need to get into that. What's the magic number? If somebody wants to call you or just says, thank you for what you're doing, what's that number?
They can call me at 765-1499.
You heard it, 765-1499.
That's my phone number. Call me. Can talk about Valero stuff with me or city council. I'm here to serve, and one of the best things that I think I can do is serve the community, and it's listening. That's what I think I spend a lot of time doing, listening, taking information, and trying to impact change.
Well, and Lillian Riojas, your city council representative, your voice, and don't forget, it's January the 18th? 13th, sorry. January 13th.
It's the second
Mark your
Tuesday
calendar.
of the month, yep.
Second Tuesday of the month, 11:30. Be there, get involved, and if you can't make it, check it out on TV and see what's going on in your city. Get involved. Brian Rosas, we're going to ask him to be coming on, and I've got some neighbors down the street on Chenoweth Street that want to talk to you to get things fixed on Chenoweth Street. And so a big shout out to those on Chenoweth Street who want their street fixed, and it is a mess. I mean, let me tell you, pothole patrol every 5 feet. I've driven down it. So I know that we have limited resources, but things like that, if we didn't have voices like yours, we would just sit there complaining and nothing happens.
No, and I know Brian will be very accessible to the residents in District 2, and I'm looking so forward to serving with Brian. I think one of the things I admire most, he has such a big heart, and you can tell he has such a passion for his district. I mean, he grew up there, he's raising his family there, and it shows. So, and I think he's going to be he's going to be a great asset to the council and his perspective, and I think, the citizens of District 2 got a good man in Brian.
Pulled it out by 106
I know,
votes
both
twice.
times. I know.
I mean, wow. They
It
must
is
have
his
had the
lucky day.
egg curanderos working on it. Congratulations, my brother. We'll be bringing you on. So this is Joe Flores wishing you all happy holidays. We'll see you in the new year. Thank you all. God bless.